Hello everyone, investment scams rampant. Please vigilant and discerning. Do not trust information from unknown sources. Please make sure recognize two official Capital Securities community, Facebook, Capital Securities, YouTube, Capital Wealth Insights.
Welcome to Capital Good Night. Today is Monday, March 23rd. I'm analyst Jane Gita. Before we start, please like, subscribe, and share. If you have any investment questions, feel free to leave a comment. If I can't answer them today, I'll address them one by one in tomorrow's session. It's been very busy lately. The latest news is that Trump posted again at 7 p.m., and this post caused both US and Taiwan stock futures to surge. I'll explain the reasons behind this in a moment, as it's breaking news. Regarding the geopolitical risks involving Iran, there are new developments every day, and it's always quite a drama. Trump's back-and-forth talk naturally has a very direct impact on the market. All right, good evening, everyone. This week is looking good. Now that we're back from the break, there's a lot to share. From last week's Fed interest rate decision to today's news on Iran's policies and industry updates, there's plenty to cover. Be sure to stay tuned to Capital Goodnight for all the details. Good evening, Hui Yuan, Yingying Meidaizi, Leek Nubi, and Yulun. Good evening, Alex Fu. Hello, Anaya, 6P7285, Hector, and Little Donkey. Leek Nubi just asked if I could talk about gold. Due to regulations, I can't analyze gold, silver, or other commodities on this show, and that includes Bitcoin. However, I can give you a general direction. Gold is currently looking a bit weak. If you're looking for a safe haven in the short term, something like under the influence of geopolitical risks, maybe the US dollar or crude oil might have more potential for volatility, specifically on the long side. As for gold, I'll just briefly mention that in the short term, it's undergoing a correction after a significant rally. Regarding specific trades or support and resistance levels, I can't go into deep analysis due to regulations. I'll be focusing more on US or Taiwan stocks or macroeconomic news. Also, 6P asked if Trump is talking again. Yes, that's right. US stocks rebounded slightly today, so there's a chance there. I just checked the Taiwan index futures, and they just surged by about 1,000 points. That surge is definitely related to Trump's talk. I'll fill you in on what he said later. Good evening, Love90 and UON. Of course, with these things, Iran might come out and deny it after he speaks. You see, Trump says there's progress in negotiations and so on, and the index shoots up. But then, after he's done, Trump or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard might suddenly say they're not talking and will keep fighting, and then the index crashes. It's just back and forth, up and down. Anyway, once we go over the geopolitical risk info later, you'll have a better idea of how much of this news is actually true. All right. Good evening, Grace Lyo, InvestShare, Dino886, and AY. So Iran denied it. It's all back and forth with the truth. Just be careful with your position management. Regardless, let's discuss today's investment highlights. First, what are Iran's 6 conditions in 2 fronts? The US-Iran situation is messy with many variables. And what exactly are the 6 conditions Iran proposed? The 6 conditions for a ceasefire? After I go through them with you later, you'll look at these 6 conditions and probably know if there's a chance for US-Iran negotiations to, how should I put it, see a light at the end of the tunnel, or if there's a glimmer of hope. You'll know once you hear the 6 conditions. Also, right now, the whole world is on guard, guarding against a second front being opened. Which second front is it? Currently, the first front is especially in the Strait of Hormuz. We go from the Persian Gulf through Iran's Strait of Hormuz, and then export out to the Gulf of Oman and into the Arabian Sea. This particular bend, this inverted U-shaped bend, I'll show you the map later. This inverted U-shaped map structure affects 20% of the world's crude oil supply and transportation. This bay is currently stuck there. No tankers, no oil tankers dare to pass through, because if you do, Iran might just whoosh and blow you up with a missile. Now the market is worried that besides the Strait of Hormuz, there's another strait. That might also be throttled by Iran. We need to pay attention to which one it is. So you must listen closely to the 6 conditions and the 2 fronts today. Okay, good evening, everyone. At least Trump wants to end it. Yes, at least Trump wants to end it. He personally wants to end it. But as for whether it can end, I think Iran's will has actually become a much bigger influence now. Right now, it's watch capital more and trade less. That works too. That's how it is. Good evening, Mr. Liv from Taichung. Trump said something and it went up 1,000 points. Iran denied it, but whether it dropped 1,000 points, I don't know yet. Linda, good evening. Let's look at Besant's slip up. What did Besant let slip? It's related to this geopolitical risk. Besant said something, and this sentence might represent how long this US-Iran conflict will last. He said something that indicates whether this US-Iran conflict will last 10, 20, 30 days, or maybe 3 months. He mentioned something, a key figure that's quite interesting. As for the industry chain, let's also look at Tesla's big dream for the chip industry. He constantly wants to develop many things, from things that fly in the sky, swim in the water, to crawl on the ground. Anyway, he wants to do everything. Now, he actually wants to extend his reach into TSMC's major territory, which is TSMC's wafer foundry semiconductor wafers. He wants to produce them. But can he actually produce them? Why did Tesla plummet last Friday as soon as this news came out? Well, there are 2 reasons for the crash, besides this big chip dream. The other is being sued over that Twitter thing. He spent $44 billion to buy Twitter back then. Then there's this court, a federal arbitration committee, saying that Musk might have deliberately released fake news during the Twitter acquisition to mislead shareholders about how bad Twitter was, just to drive down the price. So the jury ruled this was illegal, ruled it was fraud. I heard he has to pay $2.6 billion. Well, that's the rumor. But Musk said they will appeal. So there are these 2 negative factors. One is industry news, and the other is the lawsuit verdict we just mentioned. So how should we view Tesla's stock price now? I'll give some commentary today. Another company, though, blew up even worse. This other company basically just exploded downward. It's Supermicro, SMCIs. Last Friday and Saturday, some major negative news appeared. What kind of negative news? I think this negative news is very, very significant. Previously, when there were concerns about Supermicro's fake financial reports, I kept reminding everyone that if you encounter a company where the executives have financial reporting issues or signs of dishonesty, you should try not to touch it at all. No matter what changes happen later, you should just stay away from this kind of company. Even if they turn over a new leaf, don't touch them, because they have a track record. And it's not just once. They've had financial reporting issues more than once. And this time, the blow-up has nothing to do with the reports. It's even bigger, so what should we watch for? Let's look past these investment highlights. At 10 tonight, there's an economic data release, U.S. construction spending month over month for January. This data isn't very important, so we'll view it neutrally. It comes out at 10. The previous value was 0.3, and the expectation is 0.1%. Now, regarding the March interest rate decision, I think our other analysts gave a brief analysis last week, so we'll follow up on that when we have time. To put it simply, the main takeaway from last week's Fed rate decision was they raised the GDP growth forecast, which is good, but they also raised the unemployment rate and inflation projections. Also, interest rates were held steady. We might only see 1 rate cut this year and next. So overall, last week's rate decision leaned toward a hawkish stance. They're in no rush to cut rates, and the number of cuts might even decrease. They probably won't hike rates, it's not that severe, but the frequency of cuts? The timing of rate cuts will be pushed back, and the number of cuts will decrease. This will put pressure on monetary easing and will be unfavorable for the stock market and the economy. After all, inflation is too high. With the ongoing conflict between the US and Iran, the Fed and other central banks will lean toward tightening, fearing that inflation could spiral out of control. If they keep cutting rates, inflation will just get out of hand. So that's a quick review of the officials' views and investment stances. Now, this week, we have Governor Bowman and Governor Waller, and their positions are a bit different. Governor Bowman believes that despite the US-Iran conflict, there will still be 3 rate cuts this year. I'm not sure what she's basing that on, but based on 3 cuts this year seems like a bit much to me. I think 1 or 2 cuts this year is realistic, but 3? Unless something very strange happens, I don't think the probability of 3 cuts is that high. Governor Waller is a bit more neutral and rational. He said if oil prices rise, and they are rising now, rising quite significantly, rising above $100, rising oil prices will definitely affect U.S. inflation and energy costs. He said if oil prices go up too much, he might pull back from an aggressive rate-cutting stance. But if the job market continues to weaken, he wouldn't rule out cutting rates later this year. So overall, I think these officials' comments are just the hawks stay hawkish. The doves stay dovish. It's mostly unchanged. The only major consensus is that this year, regardless of the half, their stance and enthusiasm for rate cuts aren't as strong as last year. So, simply put, there will be cuts, but maybe only one. At most two, and the timing probably won't be in the first half. It might be after June or even after the midterm elections. So, just to give you an idea, the officials' talk is more hawkish and cautious. That's about it. Also, good evening to KKKOL and Little Soldier. Hello there. Good evening, AWINCH. Trump investment? Yes, he just posted a comment on his social media, Truth Social. This social media comment section, leave a comment about the Iran situation. That's right, Hectum. We've warned before, don't buy companies with poor ethics, like Boeing. There are concerns about Boeing. Before, well, Boeing is doing better now because its big boss, the US government, supports it. They get orders from the Middle East, and during global trade wars, countries are pushed to buy Boeing planes. Or for defense contracts, they buy Boeing's defense products, like fighter jets and missiles. They have it all. And for civil aviation, to balance trade policies and deficits, countries need to buy more Boeing planes. So Boeing has the support of the whole country and its big backer, Trump. But as for their integrity, there are many issues. Before Trump supported them, didn't we often see a long list of problems, like faking metal parts, claiming they had certain materials when they didn't? And then they attacked or suppressed the whistleblowers who reported faulty Boeing parts. Didn't one or two whistleblowers end up committing suicide or dying under mysterious circumstances? We don't really know what happened there. Anyway, we can't really avoid Boeing because most flights are either Airbus or Boeing. You can't always choose your aircraft. All we can do is buy more insurance. But with Supermicro, you have many choices. You don't have to buy their servers, right? There are plenty of options. So I basically won't touch Supermicro. I'll never touch it. Never. Why? Because they have corporate integrity issues. That's the idea, and that includes companies worldwide, in Taiwan, the US, or anywhere. If you see a company or its executives involved in fraud, insider trading, or any dishonesty, let me tell you, no matter if they change their name, the company, or the management, just don't touch it. It's too much trouble. You might ask, what if the company is sold or has new owners? I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. Even with new owners, just stay away. Don't even touch it. They only get taken over or merged because there are deep-seated problems. It's just the same old thing in a new package. How many of the top executives can they really change? Not many. I won't name specific Taiwanese companies, but there are many. Some were in business for 70 or 80 years before changing owners. Right? Maybe a construction company or another firm takes over for a backdoor listing. I'm telling you, if there were problems before, they'll eventually explode again. Most likely. You can look at history. There are several such companies in Taiwan, right? Several of them. In my experience, if it happens once, it'll happen again. So try to avoid them. Okay, moving on. Good evening, Michelin. ASD says 88006 mentioned Trump said it's over. Well, that's just what Trump said. We still need to see how things actually play out. All right, and another thing, this Bank of America strategist, Michael Hartnett, he said that when 88% of the world's stock markets fall below their 50 and 200-day moving averages at the same time, that is, below the quarterly and yearly averages, when 88% of the world falls below them, it usually means there's a chance for returns to turn positive because everything has dropped too much, and when it drops too much, a rebound is inevitable due to the excessive negative divergence. Now, you might ask, is Taiwan in that position? No, not Taiwan. Taiwan hasn't even broken its quarterly line, let alone the yearly one. I recall there's a ton of support levels below it, so the quarterly and yearly lines are still well above. But as for US stocks, I remember the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 all seem to have not only broken their quarterly line, but they've also broken their yearly lines, including the 200-day average. However, the Philly Semi Index hasn't. It seems to still be some distance from its yearly line. Anyway, he says if 88% of global markets break down, a rebound is likely, but that's not the case yet. Right, it doesn't look like it right now, and since it hasn't happened, he believes the market still needs a 3 to 5% correction. Just let it correct. I think a reasonable correction is a good thing. I mean, you've had a massive bull market for the past 3 years. With such huge gains, so is a 5% pullback okay? Sure it is. Honestly, even a 10% pullback would be fine, because after all, look at 2023, 24, and 25. Let's take Taiwan as an example. It's averaged a 25% gain each year. And then you have the Philly Semi-Index, which gained even more. Some years it was up 45 or even 60%, which is just insane. So after such a big run-up, is a 10 or 20% pullback acceptable? Yes, it is. The problem is many people can't handle even a small pullback. Why? Because they went all in and bought too much. So I'm reminding everyone, just buy in stages, buy in increments on the dips, and pick up good companies at lower prices. These non-economic factors, geopolitical risks, the conflict between the US and Iran, cause unexpected drops or sell-offs, but how they go down is usually how they come back up. I'll say it again, these non-economic factors like geopolitical risks, wars, pandemics, scandals, or whatever, the index will eventually recover from them as long as they don't fundamentally damage the economy. As long as it's not tied to the economy, the index usually bounces back the same way it fell. So everyone, let's just wait and see. It's just that in terms of position sizing, how long a drop lasts or how deep it goes varies with each event. If you're not careful and use too much leverage, you could easily get hurt. By the time it finally rebounds, you might have already been forced out of your position, which would be a real shame. All right, let's look at another question. Someone named AY asked about private equity issues. Yes, private equity problems have been ongoing, actually since early March, from the bankruptcy of that UK trust company, NFS, to firms like BlackRock, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs. Many of them, including Blackstone, have numerous private equity funds facing forced redemptions. So this issue does exist. It's what we call the cockroach theory. I won't go into detail today since we discussed many cockroach theory stories a couple of weeks ago. So just keep that in mind. Now, the 10-year Treasury yield has reached 4.42%, and the terminal rate has also spiked to 3.8. Why? Because inflation is surging, and people are thinking there won't be any rate cuts this year. If there are no cuts, some might even expect rate hikes, as you can see. Treasury yields and terminal rates just shot up, hitting 4.4%, which is absolutely insane. As for the number of rate cuts, from a month ago, it's dropped from 2.3 times to just 0.7 times now. So overall, if oil prices keep surging, we might only see one rate cut this year, just one. You might even wonder if there will be any cuts at all, but I think as bad as things are, they'll still do at least one just to keep everyone's spirits up. As for the US dollar index, due to a slight increase in safe haven demand from geopolitical risks, it's fluctuating around 99 to 100, staying above the 200-day moving average. All right, so overall, I think the short-term geopolitical risks have deepened market concerns about inflation, with oil and energy prices soaring and potentially fertilizers, food, and other materials following suit. People are worried about prices spiraling out of control. If that happens, the Fed won't be in any rush to cut rates. If the Fed doesn't cut, it leans more hawkish. And of course, the probability of a rate hike or no cut at all increases. So you can see that Treasury yields, terminal rates, and the number of expected cuts are all trending in a more hawkish direction. But will this last forever? No, don't scare yourselves. The sole reason for all of this is the conflict between the US and Iran. That's it. So whenever that conflict ends, maybe they suddenly decide to negotiate and we see a glimmer of hope. I'm telling you, all these issues will vanish instantly. No more inflation crisis, no more Fed holding back on cuts, no more hawkishness, and no more surging energy or food prices. None of it. Why? Because if you resolve the root cause, everything else will fall into place. Right now, everything is just bottlenecked at the source. All right, let's talk about this. This is about what we saw in the news around 7 tonight. Trump posted on his social media claiming he's had great negotiations with Iran. Because of these talks, he said, he won't bomb Iran's power plants or energy facilities for the next 5 days. That's what he said himself. He claimed they had productive talks, and as a result, didn't the futures market jump over 1,000 points? It did. At that time, everyone in our company group was buzzing, discussing why it surged and what the news meant. Actually, I posted a comment saying maybe Iran will deny it soon and the index might just drop back down. These things are very volatile. But even so, who knows? By tomorrow, Iran might actually confirm they've been negotiating with Trump. Is it possible? Sure. But we can't know for sure who's telling the truth. Still, we should at least keep the confirmed announcements in mind. What's been confirmed? First, Trump. Setting aside his claims about the Iran negotiations for a moment, let him say what he wants. Let's focus on the 5 ceasefire goals he mentioned. You should keep this in mind. Regarding the 5 ceasefire goals, both Trump and Iran have proposed their own sets of 5 goals and 6 conditions. You need to note these down. If these are met and established, then things are indeed moving toward a ceasefire. If none of them are met, don't worry about what anyone says. Let me repeat. Trump proposed 5 goals for a ceasefire, and Iran proposed 6 conditions. If these goals and conditions are met, then we can talk about a potential ceasefire. Otherwise, it's all just talk. They're just talking past each other, saying whatever they want. So what did Trump say? What are the 5 goals? First, weaken Iran's missiles, destroy their national defense, strike their air force and navy, stop nuclear development, and strengthen protection from Middle Eastern allies. Okay, he said if the Strait of Hormuz isn't open in 48 hours, he'd bomb power plants. But then he said he wouldn't for 5 days. Now there are rumors he'll send 2,500 Marines to seize Karg Island. Now, Karg Island is located near Iran in the Persian Gulf, roughly to the northwest. It's a small island, but it's the hub for 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. It's very important. So there are rumors that Trump wants to seize the island, though he hasn't directly admitted it. Anyway, regarding those 5 goals he mentioned, have they actually been achieved? Honestly, I'd say 70% are done. 70% of those 5 goals are complete. Has he weakened Iran's missiles? Yes. Has he destroyed their defense? Yes. Has he hit their air force and navy? Yes, quite extensively. Has he stopped nuclear development? That's a question mark. Nukes might be buried underground where you can't find them, so whether that's stopped is uncertain. Has he strengthened protection for Middle Eastern allies? Yes. So 4 out of 5 are basically met, of about 75 to 80%. It's mostly met. Okay, why did he set these goals? Simply put, he's in a bit of a tough spot. After weeks of heavy strikes, he's stuck because Iran is still standing firm. So he has to define conditions that he can claim justify ending the war. Right now, it looks like 4 out of 5 conditions are met. What does that mean? It means if he meets all 5, he can unilaterally declare that the strikes on Iran were effective, that strategic goals were achieved, and that it's time to withdraw. We'll stop fighting because, under the wise leadership of the great Emperor Trump, all 5 goals have been accomplished. At that point, Trump will unilaterally announce a ceasefire and stop the fighting. Okay, that gives him the stance and the excuse to say, all right, I'm willing to end this war. Otherwise, no one is talking to him. Iran isn't talking either, so he's stuck in a difficult position. We can say 80% of those 5 goals are done, but Iran is different. Why is it that whenever Trump mentions peace talks or negotiations, Iran immediately denies it? It's because Iran's 6 conditions haven't been met at all. What are the 6 conditions? Iran leaked them directly, but these are just rumors. They haven't been confirmed by them yet. What is Iran saying? They're saying they want to guarantee that war won't happen again. Is that even possible? No way. How could he guarantee that Trump from now on would never attack Iran? It's impossible. They want other countries, the international community, to agree to protect Iran. That's absolutely impossible, so this just can't happen. Second, closing U.S. bases in the Middle East? Impossible. Totally impossible. I mean, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they all have U.S. bases. You're saying close them all? No more U.S. troops? Then how would they control the Middle East? It's impossible. So this point is also completely out of the question. Next, paying war reparations. If you pay, wouldn't that mean Trump's attack was a mistake? Like, he's admitting he was wrong. So how could he possibly pay war reparations? That's impossible too. Ending all regional wars. What they mean by ending all regional wars is, for example, you can't attack Syria, Lebanon, or the Houthi rebels in Yemen and other allies, Iran's allies in Lebanon and Syria. You can't touch them. Well, that's basically like telling Trump he can't have a presence in the Middle East, right? So that's also impossible. Next, establishing new rules for the strait. What does that mean? The Strait of Hormuz? What kind of rules would there be? Like how do you pass through? How do you not pass through? And how much are the fees? That's for the US and Iran to discuss slowly, but I think it's too early for that. No need to talk yet. Finally, this is also impossible, putting on trial and extraditing media and personnel who oppose Iran. Is that possible? No. The US supports human rights. They support those against Iran and all that. So how could they hand over those media people and personnel back to Iran to be executed? So honestly, of these 6 conditions Iran leaked, about 5 of them are completely impossible. The only one that might be discussed a bit is the new rules for the strait. That might be negotiable. As for the other 5, I don't think any of them will succeed. Not a single one. So basically, Iran is just stating its position, but the US won't agree, so it won't be settled. We can only say that Trump's 5 goals have a chance, since 80% are already done, so it might end up in a situation where Trump might individually and unilaterally announce a ceasefire because he's achieved his strategic goals. So with a unilateral ceasefire, will Iran go along with it? Will Iran go along? This is where Iran's wisdom is tested. Will Iran give Trump a way out? If a powerful nation like the US announces, okay, no more fighting, Israel won't fight, we won't fight because we've reached our goals, Trump is already looking for a way out. But if Iran, let's say, is still being difficult and insists, my 6 conditions aren't met, so I'm going to keep fighting you, I don't think Iran will come out on top in the end. I really don't think they'll benefit, because if you really go for a burn together approach and put Trump in a corner, well, don't push a desperate foe too hard. It might not be a good thing, and Iran might not be able to take down the US anyway. So it'll just get more complicated and maybe even much worse. Could Iran's entire regime be overthrown then? Yes, it's possible the regime could be toppled. If you don't give Trump a way out, I think Iran might face decapitation strikes, and just like that, they'd all be taken out. A total overhaul, that's a possibility. So if Iran is smart, when Trump announces he's looking for a way to save face, saying, oh, we're unilaterally calling a ceasefire to achieve something, they should just cooperate and finish the talks. That's it. As for what comes next, we'll deal with that later. But if one side stays rigid, Trump says he wants a way to save face, and you're still being stubborn and not taking a hint, then things will only get harder to negotiate, much harder to negotiate. So regarding these shifts in geopolitical risk, we'll just watch and chat about it. It's enough to just be aware of the situation. Okay, oil prices are crashing, and as for the indicators, well, just take a look at them. I'll still explain it to everyone, including what that person just asked. Cody asked why gold has dropped so much and what the market logic is. Actually, for gold and crude oil, sometimes due to regulations, we can't really provide an in-depth analysis. Especially gold and Bitcoin, we can't talk about them because regulations prohibit us from analyzing them. So at the beginning, I briefly explained why gold is falling and mentioned some reasons. Right now, the safe haven assets aren't gold. They're the US dollar and crude oil. Whether crude oil prices rise or crash depends on geopolitical risks. If US-Iran talks go well, oil prices will definitely crash. If US-Iran talks go poorly, oil prices rise. It's that simple, that straightforward. It's entirely tied to the shifts in the US-Iran conflict. It's just like what, who was it just now, Wu Jianlan? They asked why oil prices are fluctuating like this. That's why. You just follow Iran's situation with the US. And the US-Iran conflict is quite interesting. One moment talks are going well, the next they're not. Some say there are talks, others deny it. It's constantly changing. So how should you trade? If it were me, I basically wouldn't even touch it. I wouldn't touch it at all. I wouldn't touch gold or crude oil either. Why? Because the volatility is too high. When volatility is that high, you're easily swayed by market news. And being swayed by market news is a real headache. Today, Trump says the negotiations were successful. And then gold drops, oil prices drop, but the next second you think about going long, and then Iran immediately comes out with a denial. As a result, all those gains are suddenly wiped out. Then 2 hours later, Iran suddenly says, okay, I'm willing to talk with Trump. Then you're getting slapped whether you're going long or short, just getting slapped back and forth repeatedly. It's just too exhausting. You're better off watching from the sidelines, just watching them fight it out. Once it's over, see what happens. When things get back on track, then we can trade. That's a safer approach. If it were me, that's what I'd do. So basically, right now, I'm watching more and doing less. Just keep more cash on hand. Okay, and another thing I want to mention is the opening of a second front. Good evening, David Lai. Hello, David. Long time no see. Now, Saudi Arabia said they want to stop the Houthi forces from joining the Iranian conflict. They mentioned a strait called the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Let's take a look at this map. Everyone should pull out their geography books and review this map. What's on the map? Look, right now the conflict is raging right here. This area on the left is the Persian Gulf. This dot at the top of the screen, this circle, is Iran, and the strait below it, this inverted U shape is the Strait of Hormuz. So I always tell you, from the Persian Gulf, crude oil has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, then into the Gulf of Oman, and then out to the Arabian Sea. Currently, Iran is controlling the Strait of Hormuz, this very area, from the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, this section of the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's crude oil exports pass through here during transport. Right now, this area is basically at a standstill. Only tankers from a few countries can pass, but 80 to 90% of them can't get through at all. Now, as for the other one, the second front, you don't want a second front to open up. If a second front opens, it's pretty much game over. That would be the Red Sea area. What's over here by the Red Sea? Well, the Red Sea is where things come through Egypt's Suez Canal, and after they're shipped through, they enter the Red Sea. On the right side of the Red Sea is Saudi Arabia, or you can just call it Saudi. Below Saudi Arabia is Yemen, and Yemen is very important because of the Houthi rebels. Okay, so from the Red Sea, there are also many tankers transporting raw materials and such, and they all pass through what? They pass through a strait next to Yemen, and that strait is very narrow. I think, let me see, I'm not sure how many kilometers it is, but it's quite narrow. I wrote it down earlier. Let me see if I have it here. I didn't have time to write it down. Anyway, it's like 18 kilometers long, and the width is maybe 25 or 30 something kilometers, so it's also very narrow. What's this strait called? The Bab el-Mandeb Strait. You have to go from the Red Sea through Yemen's Bab el-Mandeb Strait, then out to the Gulf of Aden, and from there to the Arabian Sea in Africa. It's the same. You take one of two routes, the Strait of Hormuz or Bab el-Mandeb. Now, for Bab el-Mandeb, who's it closest to? The Houthi rebels in Yemen. So if the Houthis join with Iran to restrict this strait, then the fighting will be endless. Iran restricts the Strait of Hormuz. Where do the Houthis block? The Bab el-Mandeb Strait. So everyone must remember this geographical location. If the entrances to these two important straits are both restricted by Iran's allies or Iran itself, it'll be quite troublesome. Also, as we just mentioned, the US is going after Karg Island. Karg Island is right here, as you can see on the screen. It's at the very top of the Persian Gulf, near Kuwait, and it's considered Iranian territory. 90% of crude oil exports from Karg Island are from this location, meaning 90% of Iran's own exports are right here. So if you get the general idea of the geography, you'll understand why global oil transport is so sensitive and why raw material prices rise. That's basically how it is. That's the situation. And another thing, let me mention something. Since we've talked so much about geopolitical risks today, let's quickly touch on this. This guy Besant, he said something about escalating actions to de-escalate the situation, or whatever they're saying. Sometimes when I look at this geopolitical risk stuff every day, a lot of it is just the same old story. Everyone has their own version. Iran says one thing, Trump says another, and Besant comes out and makes a statement. And every day you just see them going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it gets really annoying. They just say the same things every day, but nothing substantial ever comes of it. No side is willing to take any real action. They're all just shouting from the sidelines. So I look at it and find it quite boring, but we have no choice. We still have to track it every day. So what did Besant say? He said, if an escalation in action causes 50 days of price hikes, but in exchange we get 50 years of an Iran without nuclear weapons, then he thinks it's worth it. And for now, the crude oil sanctions on Iran have also been temporarily lifted. So think about it. Why did he pick that specific number of days? Why that number? Why didn't he say 30 days of price hikes for 30 years of a nuclear-free Iran? Why not 10 days? Why not 15 days? Why not 90 or 100 days? He just picked one. He just came out and said 50 days of price hikes. Don't you think that's strange? Of all the numbers, he chose 50 days. Right, so to some extent, that 50 days has become a what we'd call a benchmark, meaning if a conflict breaks out, it would be within 50 days. It represents the US economy, where prices are still within a controllable range, 50 days. Okay, so if we start counting from February 28th, let's just say March 1st. If it lasts 50 days from March 1st, that's about mid-April, after the Tomb Sweeping Festival, or even longer, before the May Day holiday. If there's a ceasefire by then, it means the US economy is doing fine. He's the Treasury Secretary, right? Why would he say 50 days? I think there's some hidden meaning behind that number. So I believe that within 50 days, it's within a controllable range. Beyond 50 days, everyone should be a bit more cautious. So he might be giving us a heads up on the time frame. If this conflict, the US hopes it ends within 50 days, achieving their goals in Iran. If it goes over 50 days, it's dragging on too long, and that could lead to many issues. US government policy would then have to shift or be adjusted. But if it's within 50 days, he thinks tax revenue will be fine, no tax hikes needed, enough funding, and crude oil prices stay manageable. So just remember 50 days, keep that in mind, and you'll be fine. As for other things, like the natural gas shortage in India and the 30% restaurant closures, the oil shortage in Australia, let them hype it up. It's all over the news, and the whole world is feeling the pressure. I'm telling you, everyone's stressed, but when will it end? When the US-Iran conflict is over. Once it's done, you'll see there's really no major issue. There's no shortage of oil or natural gas. Things will just slowly recover, maybe taking 3 to 6 months to get back on track. That's all there is to it. Since we can't recover right now, just look at the 50-day mark. I think 50 days is enough. Now, the New York crude oil price has surged above $100. We've already discussed how oil prices over $100 affect GDP and inflation, so I won't repeat that today. As for economic data, there's a whole bunch of stuff. We'll be tracking it throughout today and the rest of this week. Anyway, I can't go into detail today because there's so much to cover, but keep an eye out for the PMI tomorrow. Thursday has jobless claims, and Friday brings the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index and inflation data. Honestly, this week's economic data isn't that terrifying. It's not like last week with the PPI, CPI, and PCE data, or the non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate at the start of the month. Those are huge. This week, there really isn't much economic data, plus there aren't any major US earnings reports coming out. So I think it's fine. It's quiet on the Western Front this week. You might as well just watch one thing. When will Trump's outspoken personality change, and when will he actually sit down and talk with Iran? That's enough. I don't think anything else matters right now. It's all about how the US and Iran negotiate or fight. If they talk it out and things go well, then all stocks will go up. It's that simple. It's not hard, but it's not easy either. Just manage your positions well. As for the industry side, good evening to the staff. Good evening. Hacker says don't fight war as people die, just trade stocks. Right, but there's no choice because everyone has their own stance, so they have to fight. Energy and rare metals are the same. Don't touch them if you don't understand. Especially rare metals, they're closely tied to policy. Retail investors always get news late. Yeah, that's true. Actually, it's not just precious metals, it's the same for stocks. Often there's lagging information, and since we don't have inside info, we might not know either. We don't know, so we have to rely on fundamentals, financial reports, even technicals and chip flow to observe slowly and find suitable entry and exit points. That's all we can do. It's the same for precious metals and crude oil. If you can't find a good way or don't know how to read fundamentals, financials, or technicals, it's okay. Just ask as much as you can in the chat room. If I have enough time, I'll try to reply to everyone, or I can supplement with some fundamental, industrial, or technical info during class. I'll also try to do some teaching or sharing with everyone. Okay, let's take a look at the industrial side, starting with Tesla. For Tesla, my conclusion in one sentence is that they're just painting more and more dreams. Its various industries are actually quite good and performing well. FSD, robotaxi, self-driving taxis, then the cybercab, and even things like SpaceX, Starlink, XAI, and Grok. They're developing a whole bunch of different things, including Tesla EVs. Honestly, all these things make money. They're making a killing and they're all great. But you'll notice that for every single industry, the dreams they're painting are becoming more and more ethereal. For example, SpaceX aims to land on Mars and build a base within a few years. Then there's how many solar panels they'll make, and EVs going through generations of FSD to self-driving taxis, hoping for a few years, or even by year end, or next year, or whenever. They want the whole world to use this cybercab. Anyway, the dream just keeps getting bigger and bigger, but in the end, you'll find that it's strange. The timeline keeps getting pushed back, and nothing tangible is actually coming out. They just keep adding more and stretching it out. This is what people criticize. So where is this dream now? I feel this dream is getting a bit too big. It's so big that it feels a bit unrealistic, not grounded enough. Although, maybe it'll come true one day. He said he's teaming up with SpaceX, which does the space shuttles and spacecraft, using that space technology. with xAI. Both are his AI companies. He's joining these two to build the world's largest chip fab, Terafab. The goal is 1,000 gigawatts of computing power annually, including logic chips, memory chips, and so on, with advanced packaging. He said it'll be built in 2 phases in Texas. Phase 1 starts next year, with production beginning in the second half of 2027 and mass production in 2028. Do you know how fast that is? Usually, like with TSMC, if you want to build a major advanced fab for 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer, or advanced packaging, no matter how fast you go, I think you need to allow 2 to 3 years. At the very least, 2 to 3 years from starting production to finishing the fab. From building the plant to trial runs to mass production and getting the yield right, to be safe, even with top tech, I think it takes about 3 years. 2 to 3 years is reasonable and very fast. TSMC can do it like that. Hey, for advanced processes like 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer, 1.5, 1.6, you need 2 to 3 years from start to mass production. But Tesla says in 2027, second half of next year, they'll start production and mass produce in 2028. Wow, that's fast. Everything done in 2 years. Phase 2 done in 2030. Their plan? 100,000 wafers per month. 100,000 a month means what? As much as TSMC? Almost the same. 100,000 capacity. Total investment? $20 billion. It's weird. What can you make with 20 billion? I don't get it. TSMC. This year, their capex is estimated at 52 to 56 billion. Average over 52 billion. Over $50 billion in capex this year? And Tesla, starting from scratch, wants advanced chips like TSMC's 2 or 3 nanometer starting next year, mass producing in 2028 with only 20 billion investment, 100,000 chips for FSD, robots, cybercab, satellites? How? I don't get it, honestly. Musk is great, but this plan for the world's largest wafer plant seems a bit exaggerated. Honestly, too much. We can analyze dreams, but this chip dream compared to TSMC, I think the conditions and completion might not happen by late 2027 or 2028 for 2 nanometer chips. If they do it, is TSMC's tech fake? Did their decades of patents get beaten by Tesla in 2 years? That's weird. I don't get it. Whoa, how can they mass produce 2 nanometer in 2 years? Maybe one thing? Poaching talent from Samsung, Intel, TSMC engineers to build the plant. Even if they poach that many, it still takes 3 years, right? 3 years from plant to mass production? Not that fast. Even with talent, starting from scratch takes time. Why did Tesla's stock drop after this biggest chip dream came out last Friday? Because people think it's impossible. Good evening, Waiwu. Has NVIDIA killed Tesla's self-driving? Not yet. Not yet, but NVIDIA is working with many in the auto industry. GM, Xiaomi, Isuzu, Mercedes. They've joined the NVIDIA Alliance for FSD. Tesla is under pressure from all sides. Okay, right. So for Tesla, I think it's best to return to its core business, focus on doing its main business and its subsidiaries well, and stop chasing all these strange, grandiose dreams. When you keep adding to those dreams but can't deliver, the market starts giving you negative reviews. People will say you're just over-promising. I could swallow 1 big promise before, maybe 2, and for 3, okay, I'll take them slowly over 2 years. But you've promised this massive foundry business, and I honestly can't buy into that. I really can't. That's why Tesla's stock price broke right through the neckline last Friday. It fell straight through the neckline, which is the 200-day moving average. Just like this, it just plummeted through. Honestly, this puts a lot of pressure on the stock price in the short term. It went from being able to hold that neckline, where it might have been able to, consolidate and trade time for space, slowly stabilizing and maybe forming a bottom. But once this grandiose dream was announced, the price just crashed through the neckline, which means the consolidation period will be much longer. So I think we should keep a close eye on Tesla and Musk. Maybe this dream will come true one day, but as for mass production by 2028, I'm taking a more conservative view. Of course, now that it's dropped to 367 or 368, there's a bit of a silver lining. Everyone should keep this in mind. Why? Well, if we look at the long-term picture, Tesla stock might still have a chance to bounce back and rise again. There's still a possibility. After all, Musk is very capable. Every one of his companies is a leader in his field and makes a lot of money. It's just that if you're holding Tesla in the short term, honestly, the pressure will be quite high. It'll be tough because Musk keeps making these bold statements, which adds to the pressure. But if you really look at the long term, you might still see some very good returns. And the reason I say there's another small positive is, well, if you remember back in, when was it? Last year? In mid-September of 2025, Musk himself spent $10 billion. He spent $10 billion buying Tesla stock. How much? He bought $10 billion worth at a price between $372 and $396. Just remember those numbers. That's cost basis. That was his cost back in September of last year, $372 to $396. Now that it's fallen below that, what does it mean? It means Musk is probably more nervous than you are. That's the idea. I mean, we might only have $10,000 or $1 million in Tesla stock, right? But he's holding $10 billion worth that he added last September. So one way to look at it positively is that it's now below Musk's own cost basis. It's below the major shareholder's cost. If he feels he's losing face and wants to support the price, he might find a way to push it back up. That's the general idea, so there's still room for optimism. In the long run, maybe many of Tesla's dreams will actually succeed. It's just going to take some time to work through this. So that's my update on Tesla. Now, as for SMCI, with SMC, I can only sigh. Weren't there concerns about financial statement fraud before? It almost got delisted a year or two ago. In fact, that wasn't the first time. It had already been targeted by NDS before. After being removed from the index, and when the financial report almost didn't come out, it was nearly delisted. This time, the issue isn't the financial report. The previous two times were, but this time, the US Department of Justice is indicting 3 people from Supermicro. These 3 are big shots. Who's the first one? A co-founder, quite a big deal. Co-founder Liu Yishen. Also, the sales manager for Taiwan, Chongrui Cheng, and the other is a contractor, Sun Tingwei. All 3 have been sued. If convicted, they could face 10, 20, or even 30 years in prison. Why? Because they allegedly smuggled $2.5 billion worth of AI technology to China. They got caught. So this caused Supermicro's stock to plummet 30% during trading last Friday. Looking at the short term, this is Supermicro's weekly K-line. Well, the weekly chart looks very weak right now. It's just weak. It's in a bear market. It's a bear market. There's no sign of it bottoming out yet. None at all. So don't try to catch a falling knife. Don't rush in. There was already bad news from the financial reports. Even though they later said the report was released on time, I don't care. I think you shouldn't touch it. This time it's even more serious, directly smuggling AI technology to China. This is a huge negative for Supermicro, very unfavorable. And who knows how long this will drag on? A day, a week, or a year or two? We don't know. So stay away if you can, regardless of whether Supermicro later claims it's not true or that the US isn't suing the company or these 3 people. Anyway, I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. Just don't touch it. I think the risk outweighs the potential profit. We can take another look once the dust settles, but for now, stay away. Okay, lastly, let's mention FedEx. Their earnings were actually pretty good. First quarter results beat expectations, and they raised their full-year revenue guidance. There's a lot there, including the spinoff and IPO of FedEx Freight on June 1st. Overall, the company stated that their shipping volume, revenue, and shipments haven't been affected by geopolitical risks. They believe the impact is minimal. So, for FedEx, last Friday, on this news, it rose 0.77%. In the short term, if you hold FedEx, keep an eye on the 50-day moving average, circled in red. If it holds, there's no big issue. Friday was the buy the rumor, sell the news situation, opening high and closing lower. No need to chase it. Just wait for a pullback to the 50-day average and see if it holds support before considering a buy. So FedEx is a very important bellwether for the industry. If their earnings are fine, then the US economic fundamentals are likely fine too. Geopolitical risk. If it's resolved within 50 days, I don't think the economic impact will be a major concern. Not much, but if it exceeds 50 days, everyone should be careful. Within 50 days, I think GDP and inflation are still manageable. Once the geopolitical risk ends, the index will likely bounce back just as quickly as it fell. But until the geopolitical risk is truly over, everyone should wait and see. Watch more, do less, keep more cash on hand, and look for good companies at bargain prices to gradually build your positions. Don't chase sudden spikes during the session, wait for a sharp drop to see if there are suitable stocks. This short-term approach is likely safer for now. Honestly, the fundamentals, globally and otherwise, are fine. The pressure is coming from external geopolitical risks. Last Friday, remember our Capital Weekend report? I recorded a 3-minute video for Capital Good Morning. If you have time, check it out. In those 3 minutes, I quickly went over the key international and Taiwan stock market events to watch this week. Just keep those key points from that 3-minute video in mind. It's the essence of the essence, and it'll likely give you a good idea of how to handle this week. Fundamentals are solid, but we need to wait out these external geopolitical risks. Be patient. It'll take some time to settle. In U.S. pre-market trading, gainers include Apache Corporation, up 2.28%, and Synopsys, which rose 1.6%. The biggest gainers are still energy stocks. Companies like Occidental Petroleum, Devon Energy, ConocoPhillips, and Chevron are all up about 1 to 2%. Among the decliners is Newmont, the gold mining company. Since gold prices have been dropping lately, Newmont is down significantly by 6.73%. Also, Supermicro, SMCI, fell 5%. Micron Technology, Albemarle, SanDisk, and even Corning, Delta Airlines, and Tesla are all down 2 to 4% pre-market. Those are some pretty deep cuts. Now, this was the U.S. pre-market situation before Trump spoke. Energy stocks were up, while tech stocks, including Tesla, were down. But after 7 o'clock, well, there wasn't enough time to update the data. After 7, Trump mentioned he's having good negotiations with Iran. As for whether that's true or how much of it is real, especially with Iran denying it 1 minute and maybe not the next, well, we'll just have to watch the US markets today. It'll be volatile, like I said. Until these geopolitical risks and clear uncertainties cool down, it's best to watch more and do less. If you do trade, keep it short term. Buy a little bit only during sharp dips. Don't chase the sudden surge without a sharp dip first, as the news might be false. Stick to this principle and you'll be fine. Okay, the Dow has broken below its 200-day moving average. We'll keep an eye on whether it can climb back above it in the coming days. If it can't, the consolidation period will drag on. The Philly Semi-Index also dropped significantly, down 2.45% on Friday. Fortunately, it's still holding slightly above the neckline. But if the Dow, Nasdaq, and S&P keep falling, the stocks will likely correct downward eventually. The Magnificent 7 index is also fluctuating around its neckline and 200-day moving average. It's a key confidence indicator. In the future, if geopolitical risks actually subside, all these companies and stocks will return to a normal structure supported by their fundamentals. But until then, stay conservative. Don't be overly pessimistic. Just wait optimistically for a good entry point. That's enough. All right, that's all for Capital Morning. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Finally, I wish you successful trading. See you tomorrow.
Our company has no improper financial interests in the individual securities recommended or analyzed. The information in this program is for reference only. Investors should make independent judgments, evaluate carefully, and bear their own investment risks. If you don't want to miss the latest market updates, be sure to turn on the notification bell and hit subscribe. In addition, we have plenty of great video content on both Facebook and YouTube. Don't miss out. In our group, we share in-depth explanations of global financial events with you every day.